everyone! Welcome back to Pusat Studi Gender Podcast. How are you guys? I wish you are happy, healthy, and still have space to breathe, especially in this chaotic world that sometimes feels so overwhelmed. I'm Vita, your host today, and as usual, we are going to have a chill conversation while discussing something important in a fun way. But before we start, let me open with a little rhyme. Go to the market for buy a sweet fruit. On the way back home, I met a little playful cat. When women speak up, it's never a dispute. It's actually a powerful step toward a safer digital habitat. Today we are diving into a topic that feels personal, important, and so relevant. We are going to talk about online gender-based violence and how women are not just victims, but also subjects of resistance in digital spaces. And of course, I'm not alone today. I'm joined by a special guest, someone I could honestly introduce for a long time. She is Mira Vance from US, a research fellow at Center for Human Rights, Multiculturalism, and Migration. Hi Mira, how are you today?
Hello.
It's gonna be useful, I guess. Of course. Okay, thank you so much for being here and spending time with us. Today we are going to explore many things about digital feminism, women's experiences in online spaces, and the real-life actions that are happening right now. So, don't waste our time. Stay tuned on Pusat Studi Gender Podcast. Alright, Mira, before we dive deeper into today's conversation, I would love to start exploring the heart of our topic. We have talked a bit about why this discussion matters, and now it's time to unpack the issues that shape women's experiences in digital spaces. Can I start with this question? Many people think digital spaces are free, open, and democratic, but from a feminist point of view, how does the digital world actually treat women?
I would say the digital world is a reflection of society, so the problems of society are reflected in the digital world. So since women are not yet in an equal place in society, so too are they not equal on digital platforms and on websites, and frequently are subject to violence or discrimination or honestly just mistreatment in general online. And I think the anonymity of being online frequently increases the level of violence that a lot of women experience. It's a term that is fairly new to me, but I know digital patriarchy is something that's kind of come up in discussions, thinking about how patriarchy is reflected in the digital realm, in our online interactions, and how kind of traditional gender norms are active throughout the online sphere as well. So freedom, maybe yes, but also not from all of the social norms that still govern how we move through the world.
Yeah, I heard there's a lot of things happen in digital spaces, and not everything is good. And why do you think women tend to be more frequent targets of online gender-based violence? Is it because of social norms, algorithms, or the culture of internet itself?
I think it has to be a combination of everything. I mean, we take our own culture, our own biases into how we interact with online. That also feeds into what the algorithm generates. So if you're consuming content that is very gender discriminatory, for example, there's a lot of, I don't know if you've heard about incels.
Oh.
Okay, yeah.
I know.
Involuntary celibate, or mainly just men who really hate women. So the content that they consume is very much directed at that, where it's like, oh, women these days,
Yeah.
And the more that you engage with it, the more that it shows up on your feed, and the more that it kind of infects your world. And so their bias feeds into the algorithm, which then produces more content. They also then are commenting, which then elevates those videos, those images to go forth and fester, I would say,
Yeah.
and infect other people's screens. Because for a lot of men, maybe they start with something that's fairly innocuous, like watching videos about soccer, but then that kind of slowly delves into the kind of manosphere, like men with a mic podcasts where
Melodies.
kind of promoting gender bias. And it also, I think because we kind of are siphoned into these different avenues through algorithms, I'm thinking particularly Instagram, TikTok, things where it's like you're actively scrolling and consuming content and reacting, it really furthers divides in societies and kind of perpetuates a lot of biases that people have and gender misconceptions. And I think to an extent that goes both ways, but really where a lot of the issues arise is in that kind of manosphere, gender hatred realm.
Oh my God, so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of bias in digital platform, I guess, and from something that I know, why this is so cruel for women. Why this is so cruel for women?
Oh, why is it so particularly cruel
Yeah.
and dangerous for women?
Yes.
I think it's also because, I mean, this is my own thinking on it. This isn't based on any fact, but I think also women in a lot of media are kind of consumed as an object or sexualized, or their appearance is kind of one of their first values. And so when women are online, people feel entitled in a lot of ways to comment on their appearance, to make sexual references to them, to consume their image in the way that they desire, in the way that a lot of media promotes, especially I know in the US we have a lot of media that's specifically sexualizing women. And so I think that can become like a harmful thing, especially for very young women and girls who are online, where it's people just feeling really entitled to say whatever they want. Also, because of the anonymous factor, you can just receive comment after comment after comment. There's no real filter on it, especially if you don't have private accounts.
Yeah.
But even if you do have private accounts, people can still, there was a lot of issues with deepfake.
Oh yeah.
So taking pictures and then using those pictures to create pornographic material or harmful material. And so there was no real way to protect yourself besides having no images of yourself online, which of course means that women cannot access this space. I mean, men can and were impacted as well, but it's not nearly to the same level as women. And a lot of men, in response to people bringing up criticisms of, oh, you shouldn't be deep faking people, that's really violating, they would say, oh, well, it's not real, or, oh, you shouldn't worry about it because you're ugly, or use it as another way to degrade and demean women, where it kind of becomes oh, you deserve it because you're online. And so it's kind of this continuation of, I would say, rape culture in general, where it's putting the onus on women of why did you wear that? Why were you online? Why were you posting this if you didn't want me to do whatever I planned to do with that image? And so I think it's just, once again, tied to these cultural biases, to these perceptions that we have of women as being kind of consumable.
And people are gonna blame women by their action.
Exactly, and wanting to put that entirely on women. When
You throw everything on women.
When it was your choice to
Yeah.
go out of your way to take this image, to create this material, to then harass this woman.
I strongly agree.
Yeah. So it's oh yeah, it's your fault that I took 15 steps to be a terrible person. Okay, well.
You cause this action, you should gain by it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's because of patriarchy, and we often hear the term of digital patriarchy. Could you explain what that means and how it shows in everyday digital life?
Yeah, this is a term that's fairly new to me, so I don't know if I will be the best person to explain it, but from my understanding, it's kind of these continuations of these gender biases and norms, traditional views, I think also there's a lot of content that's specifically tailored to patriarchal norms. Like, I don't know if you've followed like the trad wife trend.
I see.
Yeah.
I know that trad wife content.
Yeah.
If you want a trad wife, so you must to be a trad husband.
Oh yes, but no. No, it's like a lot of women who are like, oh yes, like I make this homemade bread and I speak in this very soft and lovely voice and treat my husband, da 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 da. And then there's the male counterpart, which is like all the men with their podcasts who are like, women are these days, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of creating this like just surrounding pool of like, there's no way to not encounter this sort of patriarchal norm. Because in like feminine spaces, it's this trad wife, and masculine spaces, it's this like manosphere, alpha male kind of situation. And I think generally it's kind of also, to my understanding, it's also thinking about how male dominated like the internet can be as a space. I know like the majority of tech CEOs are also male. And we kind of look at the way that Twitter is operated now and like Elon Musk's interactions there. So I think there's like a lot of different spheres that it interconnects with, but I don't think I can provide a clear definition. I don't know if you have a better way of speaking on it.
There's a lot of gender wars in social media right now, especially on Twitter.
Oh yes, so many gender wars. Yeah, constant. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your opinion. And as someone who experienced closely with these issues, what actions have women or feminist communities takes to fight online gender-based violence?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of work has been done in terms of the awareness building space. I think there's only so much that can be done because I think people still are going to take harmful actions regardless, but it is really critical that we kind of create this culture of accountability and continue to talk about it and not shut up talking about it. For instance, there was like the issues with the deepfakes, a lot of online chat rooms that were distributing harmful material. It's not until those things come to light that they're brought to the surface in the public eye through news media, through just people constantly talking about it, that any change has really been made. And I think that's deeply unfortunate that we don't have proper regulations in terms of how we can handle that. I think the internet and how we move in that space is still kind of something we're learning and growing through. But I think that kind of awareness building is the most critical factor, and just continuing to discuss and to continue to make kind of coalition and connection around those experiences.
So, as a women, we gain our communities on social media and we use it to build awareness, something like that. And we ask many people in this world to don't do online gender-based violence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and a lot of women stay silent because they fear backlash or not being believed. What you think is the most important first step to help women feel brave enough to speak up online when they face harassment or they got a hate comment about their body?
I think that it's still in that same realm of needing community and to feel like you have a fallback. Because I think if it's one person fighting alone against like a swarm of comments, it's overwhelming. It feels impossible. But I think if there's other people who are willing to say like, oh, like I disagree that you're saying this about her, then or kind of speak up on behalf of someone else, I think that kind of builds their ability to feel comfortable and confident and combating that behavior for themselves. Also, I believe that there needs to be a level of security around privacy and privacy of information, because if a woman is online, you don't want your information to be doxed, to be publicized, because of course, like if your address is accessible, if there's information about you that's accessible, that makes it incredibly risky to speak out or up for yourself because you don't want the reaction. So I feel like internet safety and connectivity amongst women is kind of the two critical elements that need to change.
I see. So when women got hate speaks from others to herself, they need to reach someone who she believes the most, or maybe women's communities.
Yes,
Right.
and or allies as well. Like this is not exclusionary to just women, but this is like people in general. As we're all online citizens, netizens, we should kind of work to create the culture that we want and demand to make that culture that we desire. And a huge part of that is not tolerating
I see.
these sorts of commentary. So reporting a comment, or because I think sometimes if you reply, it kind of goes it even further. But helping and reporting comments and kind of removing that sort of content from different spaces, I think can be really helpful.
I see.
Although I don't think that's ultimately a full solution, but I think just like the change that we want to make in society, we have to work
Start
to
with
do it
ourselves.
in the online world as well. Yes.
I see, because there's when I opened my TikTok and when I found a girl celebrity or women celebrity, and when I opened the comment section, there is some of the comments it doesn't have correlation with the content especially, but they throw that kind of words.
Yeah,
I
like
mean-
insults and
Yeah.
Because I think there's also, instead of necessarily reacting to the negative, the other way is to boost the positive. So if there is a comment that's there, that's positive, giving it a like, or writing your own like positive comment to drown out
Yeah.
a negative can also be another way to combat that sort of culture and kind of be like, okay, well, I'm not going to engage with this like trolling, and I'm going to like counter it with like, I don't know what the opposite of trolling would be, but
As a netizen, I report that kind of comment as soon as possible when I read it, and I hope it helps.
yeah, for sure.
So far, what strategies do you think are the most effective for creating safer digital spaces for women? I mean, yeah, in this world there is so many kind of people, whether it's good or not, and how to create a safe digital spaces for women.
I mean, I think that it's not just for women, but for safer
everyone.
digital spaces in general, is making sure that your privacy is always respected. I think that's kind of primarily up to social media platforms to ensure that there are no data leaks.
Yeah.
Also having greater accountability, like similarly to what you're speaking about, trying to kind of hold accountability by reporting comments that are just trolling or nasty, and trying to kind of promote a more healthy, accepting attitude. I feel like there's so many things that I wish the internet was. I think that there's so many things that are amazing that it is, but I feel like that kind of culture of hate is the like unfortunate side effect, I think, of that like feeling of like anonymity or power that people find of being able to just bully people online. So I think that if there are more people holding people accountable, or just it becomes less of a norm, it might be a bit better, but it's very difficult to change. So I unfortunately don't have a great like, oh, this is how we fix it. Just like a slow over time.
It's
like
gonna need,
societal change.
it need
Yeah.
time. It
needs
takes time.
It takes time, and the best thing we can do is support each other in the process.
Yeah, and we can start it by ourselves, right? And do you have a real example, whether from someone you know, your work, or even yourself, of a woman fighting back against online gender-based violence that you found especially powerful?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if I have a personal experience or experience of a friend that I can really draw from. I know that there's been a lot of cases recently that have been discussed, and some cases that have unfortunately not gone well, like the nth room cases in Korea. They were able to arrest perpetrators, but there was a lot of people who participated in the harassment of underage girls, who have faced no accountability at all. But I think there's a lot of strength that I see in the women and girls who have come forward as a result. In terms of harassment, I think that's a very difficult question. I will say, I think there's been a lot of people who speak up about it on TikTok, maybe make a lot of videos, encourage other people, and I think that's been a really positive movement. I think the fact that it's becoming more and more discussed is really wonderful, and it's great to see a lot of different people coming together to share their experiences, their voices, and also particularly the ways that it's impacted them. A lot of content creators have kind of spoken about it. But I don't think I have a good personal example to draw from because I'm not very online, to be honest. So
it's okay.
Yeah.
But that's such a interesting words for us. But actually, I want to ask you many things, but we're going to further it in next segment.
Okay.
So stay tuned on Pusat Studi Gender Podcast. Okay, now we are moved to Me Too movement. Do you know about it?
I do, of course.
I heard that you know personally the founder of this.
I did.
movement.
I met Tarana Burke in person back in 2017.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how it was going?
Yeah, so I should say that I wasn't I was 17 years old, so it was just me going to an event where she happened to be speaking, and this was also kind of the height of the Me Too movement as well, so it was a really huge deal to be able to see her in person. And so she spoke about how this movement began, and it started in 2006, and it was mainly for her local high school and middle school students in the Black and Brown community who had experienced sexual violence, and it was telling them to get up and say Me Too, because that way it became something that they could speak about and they could rally together around. It wasn't until much later that became a hashtag online and then became the movement that we know of today. And she didn't necessarily anticipate the way that it would grow. And I think one really interesting thing that she was discussing was that this movement that began at this very small, specifically Black and brown girls who have been ignored by society and then became mainly focused on celebrities is kind of, I think, a fault of what society cared about, where what she had wanted was for people to care about those people who had already been ignored, but instead we focused more on the stories of people who were already in the public spotlight, because that's kind of what felt more shocking or something we could really engage with. And so I think the Me Too movement lives on and should live on, and especially should continue to grow and develop to really reach back to its roots and be something that's holding for all of those people who have really had their voices truly ignored and have kind of continued to have their voices ignored.
I see. So, since the movement began in the US, how do you think it has influenced or inspired activism in other countries? I mean, how it can make an impact to other countries or in the US itself?
I think that it has made a really substantial impact in terms of media, society. Unfortunately, in the US, we've also had a lot of people pushing back against it. So with forward stride, you always have the people who are fighting to push it back and saying now we're men are under attack and we're and so that's been a very significant concern, especially. So I worked as a counselor, so hotline counselor for women who had experienced sexual violence. Well, women, people, men, everybody who had experienced sexual violence at my college campus. And during my time in that role, we had new regulations that were kind of, in some ways, as a result of the Me Too movement, as a result of this kind of fear that we're overly antagonizing men, where it became much harder for survivors, for people who had experienced violence, to report their experiences, because now they had to face their, the perpetrator, in a direct, kind of court hearing style, where they had to meet them face to face, which became really difficult. And that was because at the time, this was during Trump's first presidency, there was this concern of we're going to ruin these men's lives. And so I think that's been something that has unfortunately been the very unfortunate side effect of the conservative pushback. But I do think that this is something that has continued to be very relevant for us, and especially in these online spaces today. Me Too has not died. Me Too still carries a lot of power. Internationally, it's also definitely impacted a lot of laws. We saw, since I studied in China, that's more relevant to me. We saw updates to China's domestic violence laws in recent years. There's been a lot more attention around sexual violence. The infamy of the Jeffrey Epstein case has definitely carried the continued conversation around sexual violence in a lot of ways, where I think it's not died out. And so, obviously, it's rather horrific that the Jeffrey Epstein's victims remain forced into the spotlight, but I think the fact of their strength and the fact that they came forward and the fact that we're still talking about it is a very positive movement. I'm not sure what you would say about the impact in Indonesia, but I do think that it is something that is still well known and still discussed even 10 years down the line. So yeah, I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, because since there was so many online gender-based violence that I found in Indonesia, especially because I live here since I was born, I have experience about it. I have friends. She is a celebrity because she has so many followers on her Instagram. She's a cosplayer especially. And I met her when I went to Japanese, what can I say? Anime lovers.
Oh yes, the convention.
When I went there, I met her and we have been friends for maybe 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And since we follow each other in social media, especially Instagram, some of comments in her Instagram especially, there is a lot of, insult, sexual harassment or something like that. And I asked her, are you okay with it? She said to me, I'm not actually okay, but I don't know how to do with it. I don't know how to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of turning off her reply section, she chose to let it be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that also is unfortunately the case with the algorithms. If you turn off your replies, if you turn off comments.
Maybe because she need the engagement for her Instagram.
Yeah, to be able to boost her account.
Yeah.
Be able to monetize. Which is so unfortunate, because then it means that all of these people, in a way, they are boosting her account.
Yeah.
But of course then she's having to consistently experience all of these comments and reactions, and the more comments there are like that, the more entitled people feel to leave more. And I feel like we just don't have a good solution of you can't monetize your content if you can't have comments.
She is.
Yeah, but you can't have comments typically. I would say anybody, but mainly for women that don't ultimately lead to at least one person saying something rather horrendous about your appearance or sexuality or.
Yeah. I encourage her to speak to her parents, or maybe just call me or talk to me if you feel bad about it.
Yeah, For sure. And just having support, I think, is a real critical feature as well.
Yeah, that's right. And from your perspective, what has been the most significant impact of #MeToo movement on women's safety, both socially and digitally?
I mean, I think it's the same thing that we've been talking about this whole time about making a community, growing awareness as being the most critical aspect. If all of these things go silent, if they continue to be silent, there won't be change. And so we have to kind of rally together and vocalize what's going on, what this experience is. And also not just for change, but also to support each other. Like to offer kindness and kind of, I mean, I think that's the main thing we could do, right? Just be kind and be a listening ear for others and
ways to use our social media, right? Okay. In recent times or for months ago, I saw a hashtag about body positivity on social media. When we talk about body positivity, how does that connect to the #MeToo movement? Can body positivity be seen as part of the same resistance to patriarchal culture or what?
I think it is in line in a lot of ways, especially in that kind of what we were talking about earlier about how women are kind of like this consumable product, or they're seen mainly as valuable for appearance. I think body positivity or self-acceptance or kind of expanding our understanding of what women can be, I think is ultimately in the same like feminist digital path. I don't think it's necessarily the same exact thing as Me Too. I mean, Me Too is very much connected to interpersonal violence, but it is a way of claiming space, claiming your body, claiming who you are, in a way that you're likely to still receive a lot of hate, but invites other people to do the same and to support and to kind of jump on that same train of like, okay, yes, like you love yourself, I love you too for that, like, and I love me. So it's kind of like it's the same sort of way of trying to rewrite a conversation that I think is really helpful in these sorts of digital spaces.
I wish if with body positivity trend, there is so many people have confidence to show themselves on public, especially on social media. What do you think is the biggest challenge women face when trying to push for change in digital world?
Oh goodness. I mean, I think there's so many challenges you could name. I think algorithmically it might be something that gets suppressed on occasion. Like, I think especially in places in which they do restrict certain key terms. Like in China, for instance, they have a lot of like terms that are like automatically, like your video will be deleted. I think in the US we're kind of reaching similar places, but maybe a little bit more under the table, a little more hidden. I know Indonesia also during protests there was also restrictions, so I think that kind of material sometimes can get suppressed. I think also just the amount of hatred and willingness to spread hatred is a lot stronger than the willingness to care and spread positivity. Like I think a lot more people will hatefully comment on like 15 different women's pages than people might like comment something kind. I think it's easier to spread hate than love, and so I think that also really accelerates that kind of messaging. I think there's too many ways to even name, but I don't know if you have other things you'd want to add.
I think that's because patriarchal cycle. I mean, many of what we call it policy, it works based on men's point of view, and sometimes it not beneficial for women. Right? And if we talk about breaking the digital patriarchal cycle, what steps do you think are ideal, or the first step that we need to do
First step?
to break that cycle? On the individual level, maybe community level, or maybe you have an idea for government level.
Oh my goodness. think on the individual level, it's changing your internet consumption pattern, like habits. So how you engage, so how you're talking about like reporting negative comments and uplifting positive comments. Also, if you see content that's maybe talking about these issues, or someone expressing like positive things about maybe in that body positivity realm, engaging with that content to uplift it in the algorithm. Also vocalizing if there's something that you see that's wrong. Bring light to it. On the community level, I think discussing it with your peers, as you've done with your friend, talking about like, oh, like, are you okay? Like, I've noticed this is something that's been going on, like, what can I do to help? And I think within your in real life community and then also in online communities, I don't know, maybe in your friends' cosplay communities, I know there's a lot of people in that space. Maybe they as a whole can kind of discuss ways of like, okay, how can we work together to make this a better space for all of us? And then on the government level, I think that kind of goes into the regulations around privacy that we were talking about, being able to make sure that people's information won't get leaked so that they feel safer and able to speak up. I think that's kind of government and then also on the industry side. And so having regulations around privacy of information. I think also there's some discussions around people who are underage online and how we should regulate that. I think it's going to be a very, very long process, and I don't think there's a clear answer in any way, but I think that's kind of the first steps that I can think of in each ring of society.
Wow, that's a good idea to break this patriarchal cycle, and I wish everyone can do this together to build digital spaces safe and safer for everyone, not just women especially. And lastly, for women who might be listening right now and feel unsafe or are experiencing online harassment, what's the very step they should take? Talking to a peer or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Rely on the people around you, the systems of support that you have and you're building for yourself. Know that you're not alone. I think that's kind of the...
We're together in this.
We're always together in this. And know also that you don't deserve
that hate comment.
Hatred. There's nothing that you did personally or
it's
that
not
you
your
need to
fault.
change. This is behavior that someone else is inflicting upon you that maybe stems from their own internal issues that maybe they might need to address. And so I hope that that person could definitely take the step to reach out to people in their life and take a deep breath, maybe take a break, take a moment to step away and connect with others.
And fortunately, with this case, in Universitas Jember, we have Satgas PPKS to handle sexual violence or gender-based violence. Yeah. There is a lot of things. There is many things that we have been talked about, but we can continue in next segment. So stay tuned on Pusat Studi Gender Podcast. Wow, that was so incredible. Today's discussion really opened our eyes from how feminism sees digital spaces to real action against online gender-based violence, and finally understanding what the hashtag #MeToo movement. And wow, fortunately you met with the founder. That's wow. And we know that the hashtag #MeToo movement truly does beyond just a hashtag, and I guess that's all for today. Okay, Mira, do you have a closing statement for us?
Oh goodness. Well, not particularly, but I'll come up with one, which is that I hope that everyone continues to engage in this sort of, like the topics that we've discussed in this podcast today, continue to discuss gender-related issues and things that maybe don't always have a place in common society. So I'm glad that you guys are working to keep this podcast up and running, and I'm thankful for everyone who's listening because you're all taking a part in the same movement.
Wow, thank you so much for an amazing closing statement. So, to all our listeners, I hope this episode brings reflection and also courage. And remember, women's voices are valid, women's experiences are real, and every woman deserves to feel safe in both physical and digital world. If you have stories, questions, or want to share anything, feel free to message us on our Instagram at psgunets. We are all ears. Thank you for joining us in Pusat Studi Gender podcast today. Stay safe, stay critical, and don't be afraid to speak it up. I'm Vita, your host for today, signing off. I apologize for any mistakes in my words and thank you so much. See you next time and have a nice day. Bye-bye.